You know, they really didn't have any supports. But by the end of the service, we were able to help that person get back home. And then we set up home delivered meals, personal care services, and got them connected with a primary physician. So for me, I feel like that was a pretty big success, and we were able to accomplish a pretty wide variety of goals. So something that comes up just in investigations, you know, you always have those people that are like, well, why are you guys able to do this? Why do you get access to this vulnerable adult? All these kinds of things. So we just wanted to share with you guys that, you know, FCC and this service coordination is actually supported by Idaho Code. And so we just kind of picked two of the really big ones, and there's some key phrases in there like responsibility to assist the adult in obtaining available services, developing a plan of support services, and then ensuring that, you know, care is continued. And I think that really just supports the program and what we're trying to do. So we're going to go ahead and kind of get into how the service actually works and kind of give you guys the real, the inner workings of this service. So one of the first things is, how do people qualify? And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but there's kind of two different points where people can get FCC. So for the first one, it's actually FCC prevention. And so for those criteria, people have to meet two, and one of those has to be age. So the first one is 70 years or older. So they meet that criteria, and then they need to meet one of the next four. So we have loss of housing in the last 3 months, and loss of housing, we just wanted to kind of spell it out. So it could be living in a shelter, in a vehicle, couch surfing between friends, or, you know, living on the streets. The next one is a loss of a key support member within the last 3 months, and a support member that's really helping with life-sustaining activities and tasks. So a loss for us, we wanted to, again, just kind of spell it out so there's no questions. It can mean that that person passes away, or it could mean that they move, or, you know, they just, for, you know, their own reasons, aren't able to provide that care anymore. And so for this one, I really think about, you know, a husband and wife situation where one of them has really been kind of focusing on the other and focusing on caring, and so their own health starts to deteriorate, and then they kind of, you know, have to go to the hospital or end up in rehab and assisted living, and then their love doesn't have that support, and it really puts them at risk for more like a self-neglect kind of situation. Our next one is released from the hospital within the last 2 weeks, and really lacking the ability to follow through on their care and services that the hospital has tried to set up for them. And our last one, that's an option to qualify, is a reasonable belief that the individual presents a danger to themselves or others. And we know that's really vague, but we just wanted to kind of be able to meet more people's needs. So for us, the examples that we kind of think of things that we see is, you know, a client that has dementia and maybe they're still driving, but they get very disoriented, they're constantly lost. It's just not a safe situation for themselves or other people. Or, you know, we've all had maybe a bedbound client that's just completely refusing any in-home help, despite, you know, kind of their deficits in self-care. And so just to reiterate, they have to meet two of those criteria, and the first one has to be age. And these are all questions that I think you guys would be familiar with because they are on those intake forms now, if you guys have noticed those. And I just want to open it up. Does anybody have any questions?
this is Barbara. I do like that you gave examples in here. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. All right, so we're gonna kind of move into the process, and we're gonna go through the process for information and assistance, as well as the process for APS. I think it's important to kind of understand how other people's roles work in this program. So that's why we're kind of going over both with you guys. So the process for I&A, and there is kind of just a flow chart for you guys to reference. So this, we have kind of like two different looks at a report. So the first is the standard kind of process. So I&A gets a call in, they take all the report information, they write everything up, fill everything out, they answer those additional questions that we added, and then their first look at the referral is to look at it if they need to refer it to APS for investigation. So nothing in that first process changes. The change is if it doesn't meet their criteria to refer it to APS for investigation, then they're going to go ahead and take a second look at it. And so for this second look, they're going to look at those eligibility criteria that we just went over. So they're going to look at the age, and then they're going to look for a yes on one of those other 4 questions. And if they have 70 or older and a yes to one of those 4, they're going to go ahead and refer it to APS for APS prevention. And so after that, if it doesn't meet criteria for investigation and it doesn't meet criteria for prevention, then they go ahead and just continue with their normal screen out. So really the only change is looking at it for those eligibility criteria.